Alright guys, here we are, round 2, video 2 on the blue chassis. And the blue chassis is going to be hopefully a fast one. I've had a good amount of success with said chassis. I love that word, chassis. Okay, so in this video we're going to, like I said in part 1, I'm going to try to keep these to a half an hour, and I got a lot of work to do to this one to get this close to a half an hour video. So if it goes over, I do apologize, but what I'm going to try to do now is square this up, so, because you can see there's, I mean, that thing's just singing, right? That's perfect. It's not too loose. It's got the right amount of everything. So I know damn well when I put this motor plate in there, if I can't take this and spin it like that, right? And it's try to get it so it's spin. I'll show you. It spins free with my fingers, right? It's got a little coast on it. Wait for my camera to catch up with me. That thing's effortless. And we're going to put this in here. Where's my clip? So we're going to line a clip up. That thing ain't doing nothing. It's straight bound right up. And you can look. You can see how far off it is. That's not good. Must fix hole. So how are we going to do that, Steve? Well, I'll tell you. Because see, it's wedged in there, right? You give it a little bit of a pressure and it'll just spits right out. And it wants to sit just on this corner by itself. See how this is out? I mean, that thing's got a good case of the cocks. So what we're going to do is, if you're familiar with building these chassis, and you notice you got to mess around with the motor plate. You see this little dimple here? That little dimple? That dimple's got to get ground off. And, excuse me, and as you know, honestly, I think that this dimple should be on the other side, because it'll kick the motor plate over to where it needs to be. So what I got to do is take material off of here and add it here. Okay, and the one thing that I've noticed over the several dozen chassis that I've built is, in order to get it so it doesn't sit up like that. Of course, obviously I'm exaggerating, but you saw it when it was actually in there. When you put the cluster shaft in, it's kind of just the front of it's lifting up like that, right? So in order to get it to not do that, I have learned that you have to take material off of the front of these tabs, and you have to shave the front of these down too. So when you shave the front of these down and the front of them down, what it does is it takes the motor plate and allows it to get pushed forward on the chassis enough to square up your cluster shaft hole in the chassis. And when doing that, then your motor plate will sit flush. Okay. And will that affect? Well, that's going to. You might say, well, that's going to affect how the motor sits on there. You are 100% correct, because you have two shafts going through the motor plate and the chassis, the armature shaft and the cluster shaft. The most out of whack is said cluster shaft, but when you line up the cluster shaft and get the plate squared up so the cluster shaft goes through, the motor will follow suit. It'll drop, or it'll line right up. Because the moral of the story is the holes are where they need to be on the plate. It's the tabs on the plate that are just a skosh off. So it's my job, our job, to fix it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the material off of the one side. And that will free up your left to right in the back. And you see how it's already laid flat now. Just by taking that chunk of material off, it's already laying flat in the back. Yes, it's still elevated in the front. See, it's still elevated in the front. And to fix that, like I said, I have to take material off of the front side of those back tabs. Now, there is a very slight gap on the front where the plate goes into the chassis. If you're fortunate enough, you don't have to touch the front tabs. Okay, you can only just get away with cutting down the back of the tabs and allowing the motor plate to shift forward enough. Okay, now the adding of the material, we'll get to that momentarily. And the back of this one went really well. Bear with me while I look at this through my microscope eyes. And yeah, it's, if you can see that, I don't know if you can. I'll try to get this thing focused, and it is. Okay. You see, I need a pointer. You see the gap? The gap there, but not there. That's because the cluster shaft is just barely in the chassis, and what it's doing is it's naturally wanting to shove the motor plate forward. Okay. You can see the light through the bottom. Oh, where am I going? You see it through the light through the bottom of that in the back and not the front, because like I said, now it's pushing the motor plate forward. The cluster shaft is almost in the hole on the chassis, and it's pushing the plate forward. So in order to make it easier, we'll just trim some more off the front of the plate. And my rudimentary way is I take a razor knife and whoops, I didn't want to do that, sorry, apologize. I'm using my eyes, but I can't get down low enough. I dropped my motor plate. Alright, I'll do it the other way. I'll do it this way. Nah, it takes too long. It's not that it's going to take too long. It's just there's a lot of material to take off. And that file takes a month of Sundays to get the amount of material off that needs to come off. So what we're going to do is just trim a little off the inside. I need it. I'll be right here. Don't go anywhere. I just need to see with my magnifying eyes, and I can't because the camera is right over where I gotta look. Okay, so it's not going to take me too long to do it, but I just needed to get closer to it, and I couldn't do it with the camera right over my magnifiers. So now what I'm doing is just cleaning up the edge that I sanded or cut off with the razor knife, because it's not exactly square. And we're just going to file this down a little bit. Clean off any of the flashing that I've created from filing and sanding, because if you don't, it will affect how the motor plate sits into those holes, because these tabs and receptacles and whatever you want to call them are going to be so, tolerance is going to be so tight that you're going to want to clean everything off, and the tolerance is going to be so tight that it's going to want to move the plate and not make the plate fit correctly. So now that I've done that, it's now sitting square, or flat, excuse me, it's flat. The motor plate is flat in there. There's a little bit of a dance right there, sitting a little high on this side. Okay, but let's see where the motor plate, the gear, is not spinning as freely as it should, but it spins, I mean, a whole mess load smoother than it did. And now what you're going to end up doing is applying pressure opposite edges. You know, your front, obviously you don't want to go back, because you know that going back is not going to help you any. I think it could use to go forward a little bit more, but we might be bottoming out on the front. The motor plate might be bottomed out. These tabs here in the front might be bottomed out inside the chassis. So to be 100% honest, it ain't gonna hurt nobody to go ahead and shave some material off of that, because it's not doing anything front to back. You know what I mean? But if it's gaining me another thou of an inch worth of clearance, then it's a win. So let's go ahead and trim a little bit. This file is so fine that it just takes forever to get anything done with it. Oops, sorry, I wasn't in camera. Flag on the play. I had to take a break. I had to watch Buffalo catch a win. Go Bills. It was not a blowout win, or at least what it appeared to be. 90 points scored on that game. It was an amazing game. So when I watch this video again in 5 years, I'm like, oh my lord, I remember that game. It was good. It was a good game. The Detroit Lions were playing very good, and expected them to be. It was probably one of the harder games that Buffalo is going to play. Okay, well, back to the chassis at hand here, for those who don't care about football. As this chassis or motor plate now sits in this chassis, it's going to want to go back and forth pretty good now, because we've trimmed so much material off the front of it. But this idler or final drive gear now is, I can't wing it, because obviously I can't get the right flick on it, if you will, to get it to spin. But it's damn near perfect. But the other issue is that every time I touch it, the plate's moving around. It's going around everywhere. But it is money. So with that being said, now it's time to add material. Well, didn't you take material off? Yes. I took material off that I didn't want. Now I got to put it on so that stupid thing sits where it needs to. And the easy way to do that is, what I do is I take a razor or X-Acto knife, and I just score each of the tabs, even the one I ground down, to give the super glue, because this is what I use to bite, or what I use to reposition the motor plate. I'm not going to do the fronts yet, but I use super glue to line up the plate. And man, I tell you, as soon as there's a burr on that, and it wouldn't go into the, that easy, just like that, screws it right up. You look inside that hole, it's perfect now. See that? Well, I can read really close. Get all up in that hole. There you go. Look at that. It spins so free. So that's a good thing. But like I said, what I'm going to end up doing is putting material on, replacing what I took off, or putting material where it needs to be so it'll actually, the motor plate will actually stay where it's supposed to. And one thing you can also do too, if you have one of these, it's just an armature plug, 0.65 on either side. It's the diameter of the inside of the tub. It sits in there like that, and it allows you to line up the plate where it needs to be. And then you can make sure that your gear is exactly where it needs to be, doing exactly what it needs to do, and everything's square. And it's so free. There's minimal amount of resistance on it. It's so nice. There it is right there. Yep. That's it right there. So what I got to do is add material on this side, which I will do right now using Gorilla Glue. Just a drop. You can see it right on there, just a drop. Okay. And we'll speed the process up with the old activator. Give it a couple of seconds to let the old chemical reaction do what the chemical reaction does. Get off all our excess activator, and this moved just enough worth of glue that's good. I gotta take a little bit off. I mean, that file have had words. Okay. Poor Geno Smith. Okay. Alright, messed around a little bit there. It's just a lot of back and forth, in and out, test fitting, not test fitting. And it's still not right. Okay. Let me see this here. What we got to do is we got to take material off of here because I put too much on. It's easier to take it off than and then have to add it and blah blah blah, back and forth. It's kind of annoying. So I just put too much on there, and there we go. Just sanded it a little bit, and that's good. That's good. I like it. I like it. So you can also look down inside there and see the alignment now of that pin. You can see how it's touching the front of the pin. The chassis is touching the front of the pin, not the back. This side over here, the other side is the same way. You can kind of look at it through here and see that it's kind of stuck in the middle of it. So I might have trimmed a little bit too much off of this side, but that's okay. That's okay. And we still got to do something with the front here. This plug is locking that thing right in there. And like I said, once you get the back of the back of the motor plate lined up, the front will line right up. And plus, putting that plug in there is just added insurance to give you the exact location of where everything needs to be. You could line the front up and then get the back, lined up, get it squared, if you will. But I don't know. I think it's easier starting at the back going forward. Probably because there's more give in a motor. Yes, you want the motor to be square, but I think there's more give, and there's a little bit more leeway of allowing the chassis or the motor to flop around in a box than it does the back gear. Somehow or another, the gears are more susceptible to issues. Okay. See, I like that. That fits really nice. It's super smooth. There's no side-to-side movement at all. I think I can get away with the front to back. Yeah, I think I can get away with that. I like it. So now what I'm going to do is tooth up the front, just score it up like I did the back. On both sides. And then add some of the old stupid glue to it. I want to try and carry that over to the front side too. Now that I'm thinking about it. So you add it to the front side so I can get rid of that gap that was created, which will keep the motor plate from going forward, because there's enough on the back side also. Okay. Give it a little dry action. And then what we're going to do now is how much do I got to take off? Add the material and how much needs to come off. A whole boatload of it. We're just going to file away in my most precision way possible. And then get this to fit in the chassis the way it's supposed to. And then test fit everything again. And one thing you don't want to do, this fits really snug, is you don't want it to be snug, because if you get in a wreck, it could put pressure on the plate and pop it out. And you also don't want to put pressure, you don't want it to fit too snug, because what it'll do is it'll put flex into the chassis, which will affect how your tires and the wheels and tires sit. It might rock from one side to the other, because this corner, when you're looking at it flat on the track, this side here could be pushed up because this side is being pushed down because the motor plate is pushing it out. It could happen. Not gonna lie, it could happen. Okay. And when you do enough of these, you get the feel of it, and you're like, oh, okay, well, this really isn't that bad. I understand what's going on. I know what needs to be done without really, getting too involved with measuring, fitting, and everything else. You know what I did, though? I screwed myself. This material that I added, with super glue that I added, was supposed to go onto the back side to hold it forward. I put it on the front side, I just pushed it back. See, so that's the plus side. We just go ahead and do this. Just go ahead and file it right off. Happy little filing. Okay. Alright, we're still pushing up. I've noticed also a few times making the whoops mistake of not prepping the surface completely, and what happens is you'll actually blow the super glue right off of the motor plate, and that just kind of sucks. Okay. And it's just a lot of filing, and now it's pushing the motor plate back up in the front. You see that? You don't want that, because that means that the back is binding, which it is. If I let it sit natural, it's free. But it was fine, so that means there's some caca poo poo right here. And again, that slight little itty bit that was sitting in there, the little piece of flashing, debris that you sanded off, whatever you want to call it, could make the difference. Okay, the problem I have now is it's pushed all the way forward. I got to take some material off of here. That is so weird. Why is it doing that? I'm just looking at it here, so I'm not, it's not that you lost all the audio, but I'm looking at it through my eyes and using the light on the camera to actually get me what I need. Alright, I think I gotta take some off of here. And again, I apologize if sometimes you're watching it and it gets, stuff gets lost, like I'm down over here with it. That's what it was. There was a little bit too much material on that front and it was pushing it out. In the slightest of fashions, it was pushing it out. Now it's sitting perfect. And the the crown gear, or the crown, we haven't got to that yet. That's a few videos down the road. The final drive gear is actually very, very smooth. I like it. We've eliminated the slop in the front, the side-to-side slop in the front. The front to back is still got to get handled. I need to find out, get the wiggles, and find out which side it wants to sit at. It naturally wants to sit right there just like that and be perfect. But now I just need to look at it and see which side needs material added to it. I think I just put some on the back and we'll be good. There's so much room on the back side. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to go ahead and put a little bit of an etch on the inside of the both of the front ones. And you can see I got a little bit of an etch on the inside there. I'm just going to add some glue to it. I don't like what I did on that one, because that's going to create other problems. Let's try that again. That's going to be a problem. Spray it down. Let the chemicals do what the chemicals do. Now we sand. I hate it when it happens. To get this squared off is sometimes a real pain in the butt. Sometimes you have to improvise, and a little X-Acto knives, little filing, pieces, chunks that you glued on her break off, so then you have to add more, redo it. Let's try this again. That's a lot. The tedious process of adding material.
Choose a law firm carefully. If 6 different firms handled your case, it would likely result in 6 different outcomes. That's just how it works. The compensation you receive really depends on the lawyer you hire and the reputation of the firm. It's how you prepare the case and how you argue the case. Quite simply, the best lawyers typically get the best results. So choose wisely. It may be the most important decision you ever make.
All right, I put just enough on there.
Hey Dad, do we really have fastest internet speeds?
Yeah, Spectrum, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. Can I use that to research volcanoes super fast?
Of course.
So learn to make dioramas fast.
Yeah, you can do that too.
How fast?
And it can come right off just like that, not even care. I need to keep it on here. Let's see what that did for me.
I'll get the blue. The fastest internet whenever you need it. From Spectrum. Rochester's #1 news is News 10 NBC. #1 in the morning. #1 in the evening. #1 at 11. In-depth, investigative, and first alert weather. Monday through Friday, every newscast. Rochester's one choice.
That's pretty good.
Alerted first.
It's pretty good.
Green means all clear. Yellow, keep watch. And red, severe weather is coming. Always know.
All right, I like it. So that's pretty much the end result. And once this gets all, I put the motor in, get the motor plate in, and stuff like that, and we can start testing for amp draw. And the amp draw on it is will show you where you're losing power, where you gain power, where you need to pick up power. You know what I mean? What you need to adjust to make power, because obviously the resistance and the friction robs the car of power. With that being said, I think that this one's ready to go on to the next step, which would also be the next video. 9 minutes over what I wanted to be, and I apologize. But again, thanks for checking in and watching the video. We'll stay tuned for part 3. And yeah, I think part 3 we're going to get the motor in there, and then we're going to get the rest of the gears in. We'll put the electrics into it so we can actually watch what it does on the amp draw. So we'll talk later.